Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today. You're listening to The Tim Laskus Show, and yes, I'm Tim Laskus, and this is episode 36. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, feel free to leave me a review. Reviews on iTunes help me rise to the top and stay up there. It's tough to get up there without your review, so your friendly, kind review would be great. If you got some mean, nasty stuff, go on away. Go review someone else's show with that mean, nasty stuff. No, I'm just kidding. Leave whatever you want. I'm fine with that. Hey, also, my thanks to you for your support, for listening. Go to my website, timlaskus.com, Timlaskis, timlaskus.com, and get your free ebook. Go to the homepage, put your name, your email address, and boom, you'll get instantly a free email book. You'll get it emailed of an I can't even talk today. It's an ebook that'll be emailed to you. It's the same book that's for sale on Amazon. Don't go to Amazon and buy it. Get it free on my website at timlaskus.com. Now let's get to today's featured guest, who is John McGrail. Actually, I should have said Dr. John McGrail. Dr. John, he is my idol. He lives in California on a boat. Now, if you're listening, who out there would love to live in California? I think he's in Marina del Rey. I believe that's what he said. Living on a boat, chilling out, living the life. I got my hand up because I know I want to be doing that. That's awesome. Well, Dr. McGrail, he has a company called A Better You, and he helps clients have a better life. He helps them overcome debilitating fears and limiting beliefs. How many of you out there had any limiting beliefs? Hey, I've had them. I know it's one of those things you got to try to work on and get over it. But he's had 30 years of teaching, coaching experience in private clinical practice, and he's worked with thousands of clients. Also, one of the great things about Dr. John is that he's a veteran. He's a commissioned officer and aviator in the U.S. Coast Guard. And so we all need to thank him for his service, and all of our members out there of the military are men and women who put their lives on the line so that we can have the freedoms that we have. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm a big supporter of our military, and I just can't thank them enough. So anyway, Dr. John McGrail is also an author of a book called The Synthesis Effect. He's got some really great information, some nuggets of gold and wisdom for all of us entrepreneurs. So be sure and listen. Enjoy.
The Tim Laskus Show, in search of entrepreneurial gold. Tim digs deep into the minds of his guests. Entertaining, down to earth, and informative. Now, here's your host, Tim Laskus.
Welcome, everyone, to the Tim Laskus Show. I am super excited because I have Dr. John McGrail as a guest today. Thank you for joining me today, John.
Oh, hi, Tim. It's so nice to be with you. It's a great pleasure.
Hey, for sure. Now, you were telling me that you're an avid fisherman. Have you ever told any fish tales?
Well, I think every fisherman at some time or another has just been tempted to boost the ante a little bit. You're sitting around the campfire or the bar having a cocktail after a long day out on the water, and it's nice to embellish things a little bit. And of course, with the social lubricants that flow so often in those situations, I suppose I have. I try to keep it within limits, though. And fortunately enough, we catch enough fish that we don't have to tell too many tales. But I don't make them too much bigger than they actually were.
Well, that's good. Yeah, well, I guess every fisherman has to have some good tales he needs to tell, and so that's always kind of part of it. But why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself professionally, and what are you currently working on?
Well, I'm officially a clinical hypnotherapist. That's my professional title as far as the state of California is concerned. But what I like to consider myself is a personal empowerment specialist, because while hypnosis and hypnotherapy are a big part of what I do, I've developed an entire process that I call synthesis. And it really is a synthesis of a variety of different tools, techniques, methods, and traditions. Some, from cutting edge science, some of the latest discoveries in our social and behavioral and even physical sciences, combined with others that are as ancient as the most ancient civilizations. And so I've been developing this process for several years now. As you know, I have a book out about it, and I'm sure we'll get to that later. But it really helps people create change and transformation in their lives quickly and profoundly. And it helps create what is so absolutely necessary, and that is an energetic balance in your life. We're going to be talking about entrepreneurship and all that goes with that. And I work with a lot of people that are in that realm, entrepreneurs, and it's really easy to sort of get out of balance when you're chasing a dream and you're focusing on something and you're trying to make it work. It can really take a toll on you physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And my process really helps with that. So, that's kind of what I'm about. I'm working on a new book called A Better You, which is the name of my company, in a minute or two. And it's based on my video series that I've been publishing for the last 6 or 8 months. And it's just little vignettes of practical advice that anybody can use. It takes about 2 pages a chapter, and step by step, bit by bit, minute by minute, you can actually empower your life significantly, because it's always the first step at a time.
Wow. Now, getting back to balance and balance in your life,
Mm-hmm.
What is it that people are doing where they find themselves not balanced?
Well, just look around. Our society, modern Western technology-driven culture, is terribly out of balance, and I think I truly believe that's the root cause of a lot of the issues. People these days are stressed and tense and anxious. We are a society of super achievers. And I'm just going to say this, it's a little antithetical to the concept of entrepreneurship, which is building, something and wealth. But we are so skewed toward the materialistic part of life that we have forgotten the rest of us. And I do believe that's a root cause of a lot of the issues that we have going on. Everybody thinks that if they just get their stuff, if they just have more, then they'll be happy. And unfortunately, it absolutely doesn't work. So balance is key. If you take good care of your body, if you take good care of your spirit, which is where we're really a mess for most of us, and keep the material goals and drives and desires in context, then life flows beautifully, and you can create tremendous abundance. There's no reason not to. There's plenty of money out there, but we are so skewed the other way, and people are stressed, they're tense, they're anxious, they're angry, they're obese, they're addicted. And I think that's one of the big problems in today's societies. Everybody wants more, and everybody's focused on the negative, what's not there, what we don't have, insufficiency. I'm not enough, we're not enough, there's not enough. And that's got to change, or we're going to put ourselves off the planet. I truly believe that.
So it kind of goes back to the keeping up with the Joneses, so to speak. If they get the big 70-inch television, I need to go get one, or that they get a new SUV, then I need to get one that has a little bit more options, and so then we're off to the races, and we're just continually just spinning our wheels, and then we become a slave to our jobs, and we're so stressed out because we think if we have just that one more possession, then that's going to make us less stressed. But what happens is it makes us more stressed. Is that correct?
That's perfect. I couldn't say it better myself, because what's happening when you're in that sort of groove, which so many people are, and it's from the individual right up to, the corporations. How many billions of dollars of profit do you really need before you say, maybe we could share a little bit of this? But when we base our sense of self-worth in what we have and not what we are, it does send us down a very, very tricky path. It's a slippery slope, and and quite frankly, it just doesn't work very well.
Yeah, and there's so many people who have filed for bankruptcy who are just, they found themselves at the end of the cliff, and they just couldn't go anymore. They were so deep in debt, and that's got to be a miserable experience. And have you worked with people who have gotten to that point?
Oh, yeah, every day. It's really interesting. 10 years ago, the majority of my caseload were people who, had a habit or something in their lives, just sort of quit smoking or lose some weight, or maybe they bit their nails or something like that. And it was a fear or a phobia. Everybody's got those. Not everybody, but many. And today, 90% of my caseload in my clinical practice are people who are chronically stressed and anxious. And I think our society is chronically stressed and anxious. And so it has changed so much, even in the last, I'd say, decade. Whereas, I've become a bit of a specialist, not a bit of a specialist. I've sort of become a specialist at treating and helping people get over anxiety, because that's what I see day in and day out. And it's really scary because it's not just adults. I'm working with a lot of kids, teenagers, and even younger people that are just completely wigged out. And that's not the way it's supposed to be.
And so what would you say to entrepreneurs who say, John, I'm having to refinance my house in order to make, my entrepreneurial dreams come true. I've got everything on the line. Everything has to work out in order or I'm going to be on the streets. Like, what would you say to someone who's in that position?
I would say, bravo for taking the risk. You have to follow your dreams. And I would tell them and show them that if you do everything you have to do, and also make sure you take the time, and it doesn't take a lot of time, to maintain that energetic balance, to maintain, to not forget where you came from, and to maintain your physical well-being, and to maintain your spiritual well-being. And that has nothing to do with religion. It only takes really a few minutes a day to maintain that balance. If you do, then you're going to have the energy you need when you need it. You're going to see things from a clear perspective, and you'll make better decisions. And you won't make decisions based solely on the dollars. You'll make decisions based on creating what you want to create in a very healthy way. The science behind this is irrefutable. People who learn and maintain the balance between their physical, emotional, and spiritual energies, and that's kind of a good way to think of human beings, like 3 energy streams flowing through you, do better. They live longer, they're healthier, and the people who don't are the people who are now at 35 and 40 and 45 having strokes and heart attacks. That's not good. And again, that's not the way it's supposed to be. So I admire that, and I did the same thing when I started my business, I totally understand that. But fortunately, I was starting a business that's all about maintaining that balance. So it was much easier for me not to become one of the cobbler's kids, so to speak.
Mm. So when you talk about the balance between physically, emotionally, and spiritually, so as a client that comes to you, I assume you have an assessment to be able to better understand where they are in each of these areas, and then you would put them on a plan to help get them on track?
Yes, it doesn't take very long to find out where they are. First of all, it's interesting because the people who call me know they have an issue. They know their life isn't working for whatever that reason may be. And they often aren't quite aware of why they're where they are. I'll say, well, how do, when did this start? Oh, it's been forever. And how long, and where did it come from? I don't know. And it usually only takes about 5 minutes to find out that they do know, because I believe we always know where that problem is coming from. We just don't want to deal with it. And then through in my first session with all new clients and even in my workshops, we sort of peel the onion back pretty quickly, actually. And it doesn't take very long to find out that the truth of the matter is they're very hard on themselves. They tend to be perfectionists. They're incredibly driven. They're incredibly stressed. And they're not doing the things that we just talked about doing. And they don't, if you don't mind me using what may sound like a corny word, they really don't love, honor, and respect themselves very much. It's all about what other people think, and it's all about what they're creating, what they're making, how much, and unfortunately, it usually doesn't work long term. So it doesn't take very long for them to kind of say, oh, maybe I need to shift here. And as I mentioned, it doesn't take very long to readjust those energies, and it doesn't take very much to maintain them. And then you've got a healthy, happy, productive superachiever. It just works better. And there are so many entrepreneurs, and I'm sort of at a loss for names now, that have said this in public. I only really got successful when I started kind of living in a more balanced way. But some of the biggies.
Now, where does clinical hypnotherapy come in? How do you utilize that with your clients?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that, because so many people misunderstand hypnosis and what it is. Hypnosis is a natural state of consciousness, and we all experience it every day. Every normal human being has several episodes of what we would call natural hypnotic trance during the day, and I'll give you some quick examples. Anytime you daydream, and just sort of zone out. You're in a light state of hypnosis. When you watch a good movie or even a TV show and it hooks you and you're feeling emotions, you're having an experience, even though consciously, logically, you know that you're looking at a complete illusion, but you're feeling this. You're in a state of hypnosis. You are responding to suggestions, and your subconscious mind can't tell the difference between reality and illusion. So a good movie puts you into that state of consciousness. You have an experience for a couple of hours, then the movie ends, that state of consciousness ends, and you walk out and drive home. Oh, I wasn't scared. Yeah, you were. When you sort of zone out on the freeway, which I'm infamous for, and you suddenly say, oh my good, where's my exit? Or how did I get here? I don't even remember driving here. We all have those moments. Those are naturally hypnotic moments. And even when you fall asleep at night, you're awake, you're aware, you close your eyes, and then you go through this transition till you're asleep. Well, right before sleep is what we would call deep hypnotic trance. So it's something that we all do all the time. Hypnotherapy is simply the science and art of creating that state of consciousness on purpose and on cue. We ask the mind to enter it now and not just do it naturally. And then when we're in that state of mind, we become what we call very suggestible. We create a very open, receptive state of mind. And it's a very childlike state of mind, actually. And what people don't realize is that the subconscious mind, which runs most of our behaviors, our attitudes, our personality, it's mostly all subconsciously generated, is very much like a 3-year-old child. It can't tell the difference between reality and illusion. It can't tell the difference between good or bad or happy or sad. That's all conscious, logical thinking. So when we're in that open state of mind and we can talk to that 3-year-old child, if you will, we can help it, him or her, unlearn the patterns, the stress, the anxiety that it has learned, because it's all learned, and then sort of reprogram it, if you will, very much like a computer, so that it works the way we want it to. And that's what hypnotherapy really is. It's creating a state of mind, hypnosis, which makes us very open to suggestion, and then sort of reprogramming our internal computer so that the buggy software that's not working so well is replaced by the software that's working very well. And it's a very simple and easy process. Now, the way I described it makes it sound like magic, and it's not. It is a process. It takes some number of sessions, but it is so very quick compared to most other forms of what we call therapy for so many conditions, not everything. And it's been in use for 7,000 years, and there's got to be a reason for that because it works so well.
Wow. Are there some clients who are just not good candidates for hypnosis?
Yes, there are. And in the same breath, I can say very few. First of all, most of the people who seek my services want to experience hypnotherapy. And over the last 15 years or so, I probably have had maybe 2 or 3 people that really had a problem at first. Usually it's a control issue. They're afraid at some level, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, that they're going to lose control of their minds and they're going to be made to do things, which is complete buoy. I mean, that's the stuff of bad movies, because you cannot make anybody do something they wouldn't want to do. But of those maybe 3 out of thousands of people I've worked with, the very first one I ran into was a long time ago, and I was still pretty new at this. And quite frankly, it didn't end well. I had to end the session, and I refunded his money, and he never came back. And it's only because I didn't really know enough at the time. The other 2, now that I know what I know, ended up going into a beautiful state of hypnosis. I just knew how to get around that resistance. So almost everyone is capable. There are very, very few people that actually cannot enter that state of consciousness. If you can watch a movie and feel emotion, then you can do hypnotherapy, because it's exactly the same sort of thing. It's like watching the best movie of your life, but it's in your head.
Wow. Well, that explains it. I mean, that makes it very clear for the listeners. Could you provide a tip or 2, or maybe even a resource for listeners out there who are kind of finding themselves unbalanced? What's something that they can do that might be just a small thing that can help put them back on track?
Sure. Well, the first thing, I'm going to do a shameless plug here, is go buy my book, The Synthesis Effect, and follow the process, because it teaches you how to do that. So it's out there. But joking aside, although I'm not joking really, if a person can even take 5 minutes a day in the beginning, just take 5 minutes out of your day and sit quietly. Turn off the phone, turn off the computer. Tell your secretary if you've got one, I don't want to be disturbed. Or even better, get out of the building. If you can get outside somewhere in a natural setting, even better. But 5 minutes of just sitting and letting your mind quiet, just an exercise that I teach so many people is just take 21 slow, deep breaths. Count from 21 to 0. Really slow and deep. What we call a complete breath. Breathe in for about 3 or 4 seconds. Hold it for about 3 or 4 seconds. And then gently release it on purpose, slowly for about 3 or 4 seconds. Do that for 21 breaths or about 5 minutes a day to begin with. And you'll start seeing a change right away. Within a week, you'll start feeling a shift. And then if you can up that 5 minutes to maybe 10 or 15 or 20, which is ideal over the period of time as you get used to it, it becomes such an integral part of your life. It's as important to you as eating or drinking water or whatever else you do, sleeping, because it gives you a break. It gives the mind a chance to settle down, and it gives you a chance for just a little while to just be instead of do. We're all about do. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this. I got to do that. Blah, 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 blah. And that creates that energetic imbalance. So just that, 5 minutes a day, 21 slow, deep breaths. Breathe in 3, hold 3, breathe out 3. Nice and slow. And just be with yourself. Be with your thoughts. Don't worry about getting distracted. Just let the thoughts come and let them go. That is a very powerful exercise. It really, truly is. And I teach it to everybody I work with in my clinic. Gets that in the beginning. And then we build from there.
I just tried that, and I almost put myself to sleep, John.
Well, in the beginning, it is not unusual. And that's just an indication. First of all, people say, "Oh my God, I tried that and I fell asleep." I say, well, it tells us 2 things. 1, you needed a nap, so I hope you enjoyed it. And 2, that tells you just how exhausted your mind is. You give it a little break and it immediately goes past where we want it to. So don't get down on yourself. Don't judge yourself. Just do it. And if you fall asleep, you'll wake up in a few minutes, do it again. And if you do it consistently, that's the key. And if anybody goes to my YouTube channel and looks up my A Better You in a Minute or 2 video series, I did a 3-episode series. I think they're numbered. I think it was 20, 21, 22, or 22, 23. But it was all about creating this energy. What you're really doing when you do that exercise, and I hope I'm not using a dirty word here, is a form of basic meditation. And again, meditation is an activity that is part of virtually every philosophy on the planet from time immemorial to now. It's part of every religion. It's part of so many different philosophical doctrines. And it's not a doctrine, it's just a technique. But it is so powerful, and it does so many positive things for us. And people in modern society are either afraid of it or they think it's, some sort of primitive hooey, and it could be anything from that. It is such a powerful technique. If I have a minute, I'll just read some of the things, because I have a little list here because I just did this series, that meditation does. It reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and cortisol. Cortisol is the stress chemical in our body, which is very, very corrosive to the body. It can reduce anxiety and depression, decreases migraine headaches. It can help PMS in women. It can help manage chronic pain. It can help reduce substance abuse. It can help treat PTSD. It increases cognitive function. And for the entrepreneurs out there in our audience, hey, if you don't have your brain working well, and it actually decreases aging. It reverses the aging process, believe it or not. And so all of that from one little activity that takes a few minutes a day and is absolutely free. No, it doesn't cost anything but a few minutes of your time. Who wouldn't want to learn how to do that? I don't know.
John, did you say PMS?
I did.
I'm going to give that to my wife.
Absolutely.
As soon as I get off this podcast.
Well, and here's the thing, it doesn't really matter what the physical condition is. Nothing happens in the body that doesn't get processed in the mind. And if the mind is out of whack, if the mind is out of balance, then the body's going to get out of balance. And, there are a lot of hormones and all that other stuff going on, but all of that hormonal flow, not to pick on PMS, but, all of that is controlled by the brain, and meditation and hypnotherapy and some of these other techniques work on the brain, which is like a pharmacy. All those little endocrine glands can get out of balance, and when they do, things go wacky, and when you get them back into balance, then everything flows beautifully. There's a whole technique called medical meditation that I use a lot in my practice. It was designed by a guy that's very interesting. He's both an MD and a yoga guru, and it combines meditative practices with some of the elements of Kundalini yoga, which is a very powerful yoga for adjusting energy. And it's amazing how quickly it can reestablish physical and spiritual balance in someone that's really out of whack. So yeah, there's no joke here. I mean, I profess it because I've been doing it for 25 years and it helped me change my life. I'm not where I am because I just was, ambitious and I worked hard, which I did, and did all those things that you have to do to build a successful business. I did it because I was able to keep myself in a place where I didn't go crazy. And so that's all I have to say on that.
Well, that was a wonderful introduction to meditation. And speaking of being where you are, John, you've done a number of things. I mean, you're a commissioned officer in the U.S. Coast Guard. You were an aviator. You're running your own business. When did you first realize that you kind of had the entrepreneurial spirit? Interesting
question. I was brought up in a conventional sort of New England environment, sort of, middle class. And in those days, and I don't mean to date myself, but I grew up in the 50s and 60s. That's when my early youth and the formative years. And, in those days, it was all about you go to school, you get your diploma, and of course, college was the big thing then. Well, it still is, of course. But it was a little bit more of a stretch then. Not as many people went to college. But anyway, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have a wife, a couple of kids, 2.5 cars in the garage, white picket fence. That was sort of the conventional model. And as long as I can remember, I knew that didn't fit for me. I knew, even when I was younger, that I was not meant to do just, punch a time clock or do 9 to 5 or do the conventional. It just didn't fit. And I knew it. It wasn't me. And so the one thing that I've always been so grateful for is the fact that I had the courage or the knowledge or the wherewithal to say, you know what, I'm going a different way. Because that it fits better. So that's one of the reasons I've had the ability to have so many really great and all successful careers and do so many things, which is a lot of what makes me good at what I do today, because I've had a lot of experience in different areas. So it was just something I was aware of from the earliest time that I can remember. And I had the guts to follow it and not do what everybody expected me to do. And I got a little bit of static from that. But boy, I'm grateful for it.
Well, you seem to have a pattern of doing things your own way. You were telling me earlier that you live on a 42-foot sailboat out in California. Not a sailboat, but maybe a powerboat out in California, which is quite unique. And I think a lot of people are going, what? That's awesome. So you were doing things your own way. You're working for yourself, living on a boat, and just having that incredible opportunity. But, when it comes to money and finances, where did you get schooled on this? Did you ever have that talk growing up about money and making money?
No, actually, what I was taught growing up was you'll be lucky if you make money and save and save and save and save and save. And I didn't get a great financial education. And to be completely blunt, I'm still not the best at that, which is why I have a fantastic accountant who sort of takes care of me in that regard. And making money has never been my priority. I love money. I love having it. I've had it and I've not had it. And I much prefer to have it. And I've been able to make a good living. And I did do the 9 to 5 thing for a while. It didn't start that way, but I was a senior executive, senior VP at a media production company for several years before I started what I'm doing now. And so I know, I learned a little bit about, I know about business because I've been in several businesses and I've had 2 or 3 of my own, but I've never been about making money. I've always been about feeling good at the end of the day. So even in those times when I didn't have money, as long as I could pay my bills and I could put food on the table, and I love food, I like to eat well, then I thought, okay, I'm okay. I don't need, my boat is 30 years old and it's a beautiful boat and I love working on it. But I'm not good at making money, so I have people that help me in that regard. I'm good at saying, this is what I want to do, and this is the direction I'm going to go. And then I've been blessed to find people that can say, okay, well, this is what you have to do so that we can actually make money at it. And, that's a nice thing. So I'm honest in that regard. I'm not good at that, but it's never been my priority. Living well and feeling good at the end of the day, I think that's what it's all about, because they always say you can't take it with you, and the truth of the matter is you can't take it with you. So when you get to that point in life and you got to say, well, how did I do? I believe that, like Christopher Morley said, there's only one success in life: to live your life in your own way. And so if there's only one success, then there's only one failure, and that's not to live your life in your own way. And I've never been driven by the almighty dollar and never will be. And when you get to that state of life and you're getting ready to check out and move on to the next adventure, you're going to have to ask yourself a question: how did I do? And it's not about, did I make the most money? Did I have the most toys? Was I the most rich or famous guy on the planet or girl? It's, how did I live? Did I really, really make the best of my time? Did I feel good as much as I could about how I was, how I treated people? That to me is the measure of success. So a long answer to a short question. I'm sorry about that, but I'm passionate about it.
No, I love that. Live your life, your own way. And since you've been on your own path, doing your own thing as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, what's been one of the most stressful moments for you during that journey?
Well, like anyone, one of the most stressful moments, a couple for me, and particularly in this adventure, was deciding I was past my mid-40s, that I wasn't going to dust. When my company was bought by a .com back in the early 2000s, for those who remember the .com crash, there were these companies that were getting millions, billions of dollars of venture capital and producing absolutely no product. And of course, the bubble burst in a very big way. And I was, as I said, an executive for this very profitable boutique production company out here in LA. And we were purchased by a .com who wanted our client portfolio because we were working with Fortune 100 companies like FedEx, United Airlines, Citibank. I mean, we had a really, really incredible portfolio of clients, Toyota. And, they were in the middle of literally pissing away $50 million of venture capital, and we went with it. So the first thing was when I got my layoff, they laid off all the little people as much as they could. And then they said, we got to cut the bone now. So they started getting rid of the senior executives that they thought they could. And because I was part of the old company that had been purchased, I was one of the first senior executives that lost their job. And so there I was, unemployed in my 40s. And the first one was, okay, what am I going to do? I could have dusted off my resume and gone to work for another production company. I mean, that's what Hollywood and LA is all about. And I knew a lot of people. And instead, I decided to really take a look at things and say, what really, really has always made you happiest in any job you've ever had, from the military to the airlines, when you had your own company back east, to even this company? What is it that lights you up? And when I was honest with myself, I realized that what really lights me up is teaching and coaching and mentoring people and helping them develop. And so I decided to go back to school to become a clinical hypnotherapist at 45 or 6 or however old I was. And you can imagine the folks back in New England say, a what? You're going to be a what? They didn't even know what it was. My mother was beside herself, but she's also used to my weird decisions. So that was kind of stressful, because it's like, this feels really good, but can I actually do this? Is anybody going to come to see me? Where am I going to get clients? And then, of course, when you graduate and now you know how to do it, sort of, well, now you got to find clients. Well, fortunately, I had the marketing experience and the business know-how to go out and get myself out there and do presentations. So then that big stress sort of went away, because I was in my element. I was doing stuff that I did as a VP of business development, except it was for my business. And then there are those times, and any entrepreneur knows this that's been there and done that, when things are going well and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, sometimes it's inexplicable, the client train dries out and suddenly you have a full schedule. And in my business, because my clients get well so quickly, they're not usually with me more than a few weeks. There was the first time it ever happened. I was really terrified. I had a full slate of clients, and then within 2 weeks, 17 people finished their treatment, because I never know exactly when someone's going to be finished, and the phone wasn't ringing at the time. And so I had this huge schedule with nobody on it. And that was pretty scary and stressful. And what I found over the course of the years is that when those times happen, you just go back to doing what you know how to do. You go back to making phone calls. You call old clients. You go out and do a presentation. You give your cards away, and you network. You do what it took to build it to begin with, and it always comes back. So there are always those moments. And the good thing is, if you're already sort of in a place of balance, getting back to where we started from, they don't knock you off your feet so badly. The first one did. I was a mess. Like, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage? What am I, but it worked out. And what I would say to everybody is, if you stay the course and you maintain yourself, stay the course and do what you know how to do, it always works out. It always works out. Always.
Stay in the course. I think so many people kind of jump ship too early. And, understandably so, they get nervous about whether, this is a dumb idea, whether I'm going to make any money. Am I going to have any clients? Do I have credibility? And stay the course is a powerful tip that I love that, John. And so remember, if you remember anything, stay the course on your entrepreneurial journey. Now, John, since you've been helping clients along the way, is there one person that sticks out, one particular client that sticks out where you went, oh, this is why I'm doing this?
Well, yeah, there are a couple, but there's one that it really is, it does stick in my mind, and I could pick from a few. But there was a young man I worked with who was a graduate student over at USC out here in LA. Most people have probably heard of USC. And he came to me and was severely obese. And I'm talking about severely obese. He was probably 150 pounds overweight. And he had never had a green vegetable in his life. I know that sounds insane to most people, but he had never eaten a vegetable. He had an aversion to vegetables. So all he ate was meat and potatoes and pizza and those sorts of things. And he was a really nice young man and very bright. And so we began to work together, and I think we did 3 sessions. And it was like putting water on a plant that hadn't had water. He just, all the stuff that he had been carrying with him from his Midwest background and all these sort of irrational but very real for him thoughts about food evaporated, and he slowly began to experiment. And we had 3 sessions, and he said, you know what, I think I got it. So, and he went away. So I saw him 3 times. And about, I would say a year later, I get a knock on my door one day, or my session light went on, and I saw the light go on, and I knew I didn't have a client schedule. And I said, well, who's out in the waiting room? And so I go to the waiting room, and this guy stands up, young guy, and he goes, Dr. John, how you doing? And I shake his hand, and I have no idea. Well, who are you? And he said, you don't remember me? And I said, no, I don't. And I believe, ironically, his name was Tim. And he goes, I'm Tim such and such. And we worked together last year. And I looked at him and I said, oh my God. And he had gone out and lost about 130 pounds. So much, and he was eating healthily, he was eating vegetables, and he was thriving in his graduate program. And it had all gone away. But I literally didn't recognize him. And the funny part of this story is that his parents had flown out to visit him, and when he pulled up in his car to pick them up at the airport, they said, who's that driving Tim's car? And they didn't recognize him. And wow. So that's one of my favorite stories. And I have many, many like that. And they're not all that dramatic. Most of the people I work with are everyday people like you and me, Tim, and they've got something in their lives that's not working. It can be a habit that's holding them back, or a fear, or a phobia, or the fear of following their dream because everybody expects them to be something else. I work with a young guy that had gone through law school, top of his class, at one of the best law schools in the country and couldn't pass the bar exam. He'd taken it 3 times and failed 3 times. So he came to me for help. And it took about 5 minutes to find out that the reason he was not passing the bar exam had nothing to do with his ability. He was at the top of his class at one of the best law schools in the country. He didn't want to be an attorney. What he wanted to be was a chef. But his family expected him to be an attorney because everybody in the family for generations, you know how that goes. That's what we do. And so what I helped him do, first of all, was pass the bar just because. Let's just get this out of your system. And then I helped him build the courage to tell his family that he was going to culinary school to become a chef. And now he's got, I believe, 6 restaurants. He's a world-renowned chef. He's making more money than God. And of course, now his family, who were apoplectic when he said, I'm not going to be an attorney, they think it's just the greatest thing in the world when they see him on TV and all over the world. So that's another really all-star story. But,
Wow.
just regular people that have something that's holding them back, and I help them get through it and on their true path. I like to call it rediscovering who you truly are. And, that's what lights me up. And it still does. Since I started this, I have not worked a day in my life. And it's been going on 16 years now.
Well, that's incredible. And there should be many more people who have that same feeling about what they're doing in life. And your stories have been fantastic. You've shared incredible tips. And it's just been a real value to the show. And we're at the end of the show, but before we go, John, I want you to tell the listeners where they can find you online, your book, your program, and all that great stuff.
Well, thank you so very much, Tim. You're very kind. Well, anybody that wants to find me, if you just Google Dr. John McGrail, I'll pop up. And there are a few other Dr. John McGrails, but I'm the only one that's a hypnotherapist. So that's easy. But I have 2 websites. drjohnmcgrail.com, which is more about my bigger program, and it's currently being rebuilt. So if you go there and it's clunky, we're working through that. And then my other website, which is more hypnotherapy-centric, is www.hypnotherapylosangeles. All one word spelled out. You can't forget it. hypnotherapylosangeles.com. Tons of information about me and what I do and hypnotherapy. And then my book, The Synthesis Effect, is available on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com in either paperback or ebook. It is a book that teaches my process step by step. It shares stories along the way. It's gotten really, really great reviews, and I'm so flattered that it works as well as I hoped it would. And if you want to reach out to me, if anybody out there has a question or an issue, you can reach me through my websites via email. My phone number's there. You can call me, and I promise everybody, I do this all the time. If you reach out, I promise you 2 things. A personal response. My people don't respond to my emails and phone calls, although you may get an operator when you call the number. I will get back to you personally, and a free consultation. I'll help you just sort through things, have a little chat, and see if what I do or what someone like me does would be a good fit for you. But I extend that invitation to anybody out there. I'm available. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
Yes, Dr. John McGrail, such an incredible resource for all of you listeners. Be sure to look him up on his website, and he'll call you back if you give him a call. So that's wonderful. Thank you, John, for your time. It's been a pleasure, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Tim. You're incredibly generous, and I really, really appreciate it. We should do it again sometime. We just scratched the surface.
For sure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Want more entrepreneurial tips? Go to timlaskus.com.